Hey, everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zolda, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting, as well as the publisher at Autonomy Global. I always forget like what side it's on because the camera. Hey, we are in a month dedicated to energy ops. And when you think about those operations, by the way, sponsored by Suncor Energy, but when you think about those operations, I think about Synergy Aviation. We've had Craig Husselby on the show before. It's a couple years now when we were the Dawn of Drones. So it's wonderful to have you back, Craig.
Thank you, Don. It's really great to be here.
And Craig is a member of the Volatus family. And this is our, fourth annual Volatus Above and Beyond series, maybe our fifth. I feel like we've been doing this since year one. So really excited to have the series, really excited, Craig, to have you back and to catch us up on everything that you've been doing in the last couple years and how Synergy Aviation has evolved over time in energy operations. So we'll drop that YouTube link for those that might want to catch up and see, a couple years ago what they were doing, and we're going to go right to today. So, Craig, for those that don't know you, tell them a little bit about your own background first.
Well, first, Don, thank you for having me on the show. This is it's really great to connect with you again. I started with Synergy almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. My background has been in oil and gas, and so I worked with the major producers from actually Suncor to Shell, CNRL, and Pembina pipelines for 15 years. And towards the end of that career, I started working on aviation programs associated with it, including pretty much anything that flies. It ended up that I had an opportunity with Synergy, and I came over just about the same time where Synergy became part of the Volatus sphere. So in the last 2.5 years, been working on just developing like at the heart of it, we're an aviation company. It's in our name. But realistically, when you look at it, we're a data company, and in supporting those oil and gas assets. So how do we get from the point where we're actually flying the right of ways and like doing that kind of work to providing asset integrity on the back end to it, to see we collect all this data for people, but then what do we do with it? And that's kind of the main thing there. So we're growing pretty fast, and it's a really exciting time to be in this. Like the regulatory changes that are happening and everything that goes with it. So no, it's been a fun time.
Well, I'm crossing my fingers here. Hopefully, the regulatory changes that we need will go with it. I know in Canada, you've got extended beyond visual line of sight or extended line of sight. And then, you've got hopefully a regulation on the horizon for beyond visual line of sight, as here as well in the United States. We're all waiting with bated breath on those. So more to follow. But by the way, we are live, everybody. Just wanted to remind you, and we've got our super fan Mark Young out there from the Nevada test site saying good morning from Nevada. Good morning, Mark. Great to have you. And everybody else out there, keep the comments coming. We love them. Ask Craig some questions, especially if you're in the energy space. I mean, Synergy Aviation has been doing this for over a decade now. So tell us a little bit about the origin story and then kind of bring us up to the evolution of how drones started getting into the mix in terms of these inspections that you're talking about for the energy sector.
Yeah, 10 years ago, Synergy started with just two aircraft, and it was kind of a combination of some people that worked for different companies and stuff like that that started to figure that they could do it better. Um, the the vacuum that we kind of filled within this area is not only having like having the professional flying and the safety record and everything like that, but then also bringing on the technology for it and how we're communicating with our clients. We wanted to make sure that everything that we were doing is meet or exceed those expectations that were considered the regulatory authority within it, that our customers could come to us and make sure that we're able to get what they need to do to provide safe, reliable operations for their pipelines. And you know what? When our founders, Todd and Mark, when they started, there wasn't this big grandiose, this we're gonna take over the world kind of thing. They wanted to do like kind of know what they're doing and do it well. So as this kind of has progressed through, in the growth that we've seen with the, we're up to, I think we're up to 28 aircraft now. And so,
Wow.
and how that's moved has been, way ahead of the, kind of adding one aircraft per year that they were looking at when they started. Um, the the regulatory view from the oil and gas side for this, we're a little bit lagging behind when it comes to implementation of drones in our past systems. But what really is interesting to me about it is, like getting away from this buzz that, like, well, drones are going to replace everything, because there's still aspects of it that we look at and say, well, like traditional or crewed aviation is still a better alternative for it, even if we have this, like working in, like the far northern areas, working in the different things. But inputting those drones in our past systems into the actual our actual line of work where it makes sense and where we can definitely see benefit to doing it. Like really repeatable things. We have customers that have short periods of pipelines that they need to do inspections on them on a daily basis, and they're fairly remote. Like even just the savings that we would see from not having somebody get in their truck, drive 50 kilometers down a dirt road by themselves during the day to look at something and then drive back. Just the savings of doing that remotely is massive, right? Just from
Yeah.
having that drone in a box solution, or that like that remotely piloted area, whether it's a takeoff or drop off point. So as we're doing that, we're also finding that there's a lot more just like doing lidar form for slope susceptibility programs, doing like pipeline locations. There's just so many aspects of it that not only, in my view, really improve the health and safety of these companies, but it also eventually will save money, right? We'll be able to provide them with as good of a product without any of those risk factors that we would look at traditionally.
Well, I think you raise a great point. Well, actually, several points. One is, a lot of people, I think, believe the oil and gas industry were kind of early adopters of drone technology. I think because they are such a traditional industry, there was a lot of hesitancy at first, right? And you had the crewed aircraft, and a lot of these folks had aviation, programs themselves, or they hired contractors to do these required inspections. So they didn't see the need. But also, to your point, over time, there were definitely use cases where having, let's call it a mixed program, is probably the way to go. Oh, by the way, we have a great question here. Uh, let's see. Are you operating in the US and Canada? This is from Skycraft 86.
Yeah, for sure. We operate in Canada, the US. For one of our customers, we go from Edmonton, Alberta, all the way down to Houston on a 10-day schedule. We do a lot of like our asset integrity, so our skipper NDT program. We do a lot of that through California and Texas, into Oklahoma. So as Volatus is kind of a, like a North American brand for that case, we have a lot of reach in those areas. Our primary operations are in Canada, but we definitely go down into the States. We don't have a base for our manned aviation side of things, but like that's kind of the horizon that we're looking at.
Ooh, getting some news here. But you mentioned Skipper NDT. I know we're going to talk about this later, Craig. But for those that don't know what NDT is, probably a lot of our folks do. But for those that don't, that's non-destructive testing you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we had very briefly Cortland Pank from Osprey Integrity on the show with Suncor, talking a little bit about NDT. And we have an upcoming show next week with Volero, the Volero drone folks, where Cortland's going to be on there again. He's a frequent flyer this month for Energy, and he's also from Canada. But, you kind of alluded to, Craig, I want to really kind of put a pin in it in terms of the problem that you're solving for your clients with this mixed program. Like, can you kind of like summarize that for us? If you were going to give me that 30-second elevator speech, like, hey, with our aviation program, this is the problems, these are the problems we're solving for you.
Yeah. So the main thing that we get from our customers is they have a regulatory requirement in order to monitor their pipelines. And so from that standpoint, we go out and we provide both visual gas leak detection, thermal leak detection. And we also have a product called a 360 camera that is essentially just it leaves a breadcrumb trail where you're going, taking 360 pictures around the aircraft. So the primary goal from like if you just stripped it down to the basic would be meet that regulatory requirement for the energy company that their pipeline is operated in a safe way.
And Craig, we're primarily talking about methane compliance or something else, like the methane leaks.
So that's one of the things we look for. So what we use the Boreal gas leak detection service, our laser in order to measure gas leak detection along the pipeline. Really the basic thing. So as we're operating the actual pipeline itself, we have a pilot and an observer. As they're flying down the pipeline, the observer has eyes on the actual pipeline themselves. We're looking for third-party activity. So if there's somebody on the pipeline that shouldn't be, especially with something like a bobcat or a dozer or something that could disrupt the ground and potentially threaten the actual pipeline itself, anybody digging.
Okay, so straight up safety reasons.
Straight up safety reasons. We have the tooling that we use for gas leak detection to see if there's any leaks. There's also visual cues. So change in vegetation programs, any erosion, like any changes in the actual right of way itself for the actual pipeline. So as we're going down, we look at that. We look at stuff for signage. Signage is required to be on the pipelines, especially at roadways and water crossings, that they have the notification that there's a pipeline buried. So we look for things like that. We're looking for, if the vegetation is overgrown, if there's dead vegetation, that can be a sign of a leak below ground that you can't physically see. So those are the basics of it. That's what like when we get called from it, even if it's the company that just wants to check that box for the regulatory compliance, that's what they would be looking for, is just that HD visual, somebody getting eyes on it that can submit a report that says we've flown this pipeline and we don't see the risks that are associated with operating.
Okay, awesome. And I think we're getting into it a little bit now, so let's go there. What types of pipeline surveillance and asset integrity monitoring services do you guys offer? I mean, you just kind of ran through like what you're looking for, but what are the kind of the laundry list of services?
Yeah.
And
So
I think Craig also we might have a video, so you tell me when we should pop it up.
yeah, for sure. So the basics that we have would be the pipeline operations. So with that, from a fixed wing side, we would operate a thermal camera, like a FLIR thermal camera. So that's just looking for changes in temperature along the actual pipeline themselves. The product that's in the pipeline, whether it's gas or liquid, it's generally a different temperature than ambient. So that spots up with that big bright like thermal signature when you're flying over it to see if there's any potential leaks. And then our 360 camera. From a rotary side, we'll have the Boreal system for the gas leak detection. And then the thermal cameras and 360 cameras also. We've also been working with Vanguard, which is a company out of Minnesota. They have the Falcon XL gas leak detection laser. And so it's a multi-diode laser that goes down the actual pipeline itself and is looking for methane signatures for it. So it's another option that we would have to use that gas leak detection and try to find, like, those ones are fugitive emissions. So looking for methane that's leaking from it, whether it's from the actual pipeline itself or a battery or a well location, and then being able to notify our customer that like there's a problem here and this is what you have available here.
Gotcha. And by the way, I think you're reading our note here. Um, Chris Janiseth is Skycraft 86. Chris is another super fan. I'm looking forward to seeing him, maybe at Exponential, but certainly in Houston at Energy Drone. I know you're going to be there, Craig. We're all excited about the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition Summit. And by the way, everybody, if you didn't know, AUVSI Exponential is next week in Houston, Texas, the Petro Metro, as Sean Gare calls it, from Energy Drone. And my Law Tech Connect, or our Law Tech Connect workshop, will be on Monday, May 19th. We do have a panel called Big Energy that Sean will moderate. We do have a Volatus, one of your colleagues, Craig, on that panel, Richard Nasmith. So really excited to meet him in person. But we're going to be talking about all these regulations. And Chris's question is, I'm assuming the Canadian regs are ahead of the US question mark.
You know
Now,
what? It's
yeah, I
kind
don't
of
know what
a,
regs he's talking about. I'm thinking drones, because the methane and the compliance requirements are going to be different, but possibly similar. And right now with the current administration, I don't know what's being rolled back because I can't keep up. Uh, but let's talk about the drone regs just briefly in Canada in terms of, yeah, extended line of sight, beyond visual line of sight.
yeah, the drone regulations in Canada, they have been moving a little bit slower than the US. They're kind of Transport Canada try to kind of takes lead from the FAA in a lot of these scenarios. Realistically, it's a matter of, like, much like, the FAA is experiencing now too. It's funding, right? There's not enough people to do all the jobs that they're looking for to improve all the things. So we're a little bit behind. Volatus has made some extremely big steps with like BV loss coverage and how they're able to operate within Canada. So that's been very promising for it. To kind of go to the other side of things, when we're looking at the like the regulations for methane and stuff like that, again, it's a little bit of a shotgun approach. There's stuff in Canada that they pay a lot more attention to. But when we look at the US regulations in PHMSA has some regulations on there that, that far exceed what we would view in Canada, but it's just a matter of what it is. So for example, like with the methane problem that's going on, PHMSA has it set up so that if somebody goes out and detects methane and reports it to PHMSA, it has to be investigated. And
Yeah,
it
that's
can
a
just be,
newer development, actually. That happened in the last couple of years, Craig. I remember when you were on, when we did the Energy Law Tech Connect Energy Edition
yeah,
with Energy Drone, that had just come out,
yeah.
and that, or was coming out, if my memory serves correctly. And that was a big deal. Like, anybody in the public could report, like, hey, I'm seeing this. And frankly, there are satellite companies, nonprofits that exist solely to monitor methane gas leaks. And they will, get on the horn and say, hey, this company right here, is non-compliant. And so that is a big deal. I don't know if that's going to stick around here in the US, but you're absolutely right. And I want to get back to, like, your products, but Chris, come to Law Tech Connect, DM me offline. I have one scholarship left, my friend, and we are absolutely covering this. We're going to be talking about the regs. By the way, states in the United States have their own regs. I know Colorado, where I live, pretty rigorous in terms of the requirements. So not only do you have the federal level, you have state as well, and it's definitely worth coming to the event. So hopefully we'll see you there. But I want to get back to Craig, talking about the services you provide, and how does this work in terms of water? I know we have a really cool video. I want to show it. I want you to talk us through it, but and then tell us, like, what we're looking at here in terms of the services that you provide. So let's go ahead and roll film.
Yeah, so this is a really cool project that we're actually working on right now. So there's a drone there, and that's actually a Dragonfly heavy lift drone. And so that is pulling around it's a multi-beam echo sounder, so sonar.
Oh,
So
cool.
what we're doing with that is one of the problems that a lot of the pipeline companies have is, as they're operating underneath waterways, if they have like a weather event, so like either runoff periods or flooding or high rain, there's the bottom of the actual rivers themselves aren't static, right? There's a lot of movement within the beds and everything like that. So what the worry is during those events that they're going to be the water is going to be moving quickly, and they're going to get some scour at the bottom of the river. When that happens and there's a potential for a pipeline to be exposed, they have no real way to get into the water to see if there's anything on it. It's too dangerous to send divers down. Boats aren't allowed on
Wow.
those areas. So
Yeah.
we've developed a program where that echo sounder, which is usually strapped to a fairly large boat, has been built onto like an ROB for lack of a better term. And we're able to lift that and drop it in the water and provide bathymetric info based on that. And so there's single beams echo sounders out there that you might have seen them before. They're a drone that has, it's almost like a microphone hanging off the bottom of it, and it drags it through the water. So
Yes,
this
I've
one's a
seen those.
multi-beam, so we get excellent quality of data from it, and we can actually visualize if there is an exposed pipe, if there's any problems with it. The main problem with exposed pipes in those areas is if the water starts getting underneath it, there's an oscillation that happens in the actual pipe itself, and
Yeah.
that can cause some fairly serious breakage or events that would happen. And that's worst possible scenario for these companies is having a release, especially in a waterway, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
So
That
we're
is
able to,
so cool. I love what you're doing there. And, to your point about visual inspections, you can't see through the water if you can't send a diver down. This is ideal for that. But let's talk about other visual inspections. I know that you guys conduct the HD visual inspections you mentioned. Tell us a little bit more about that.
yeah, so the HD visual inspections are trained observers that are going down the actual pipeline themselves that are watching for it. So we have a 6-month training program. All our observers are pilots also, so it gives them the opportunity to get their hours up from the flying standpoint, and then also, but like what their job is, what our bread and butter is the pipeline monitoring. We have a library of hundreds of thousands of images and examples that we use for what we're actually looking for, what we're going to be showing to see that, hey, this area here where there's erosion, that erosion is, the movement of the ground affects the pipeline that's below, right? So how do
Yeah.
we communicate that to our clients to make sure that they are looking for it? So with the cameras that we have that we operate with it, we can provide those photographs in 16K to our clients to then look at it and say, here's an eye from the sky, here's your asset, is there a problem that you need to go look at? And it gives them that idea. Synergy flies 2 million miles of pipeline a year. So
Wow.
if you can imagine the stretch that would have, and especially in, I mean, like pipelines, oil and gas exploration happens in some pretty remote places. So it's not that somebody's just going to happen upon these things, and you don't want them to be happened upon. You want to have a program that provides you that look at it.
Well, as you said earlier, it's all about the data. I mean, whether it's the aircraft, whether it's the drone, and depending on the sensor you're using, it's all to collect data. Now, I'm going to deviate from the script for a second, Craig, because you're collecting, what would you just say, over 2 million miles worth of pipelines that you're following every year and collecting data on all these frequently. I would think millions and millions of images. You know, um, so are you leveraging AI like on the back end in terms of analytics to help these companies? In other words, you guys are, collecting the data. Are you also assisting with the analysis of that data for the client?
Yes, we are. AI is this really big thing. So from our standpoint within our industry, we're looking at how we can take that imagery, right? Like those thousands of pictures of different erosions or
Exactly.
like exposed pipes that would be on the right of way from, any kind of erosion or scour or anything like that. And how can we identify them? The really cool part about this is we're partnered with a company called FlyScan. And FlyScan, they market themselves as the flying pig, right? So what the flying pig does is as they're flying down the pipeline, it's using hyperspectral cameras and AI enhanced software to do visual inspections of those through their actual um, like through their program. So we got a photo that includes what we would replace in our front seat of our aircraft that would go. So what happens is, as we're flying down the physical air or pipeline itself, the aircraft flies directly over center line. It's taking all these imaging, and they're able to look and see if there's oil leaks, look to see if there's third party activity. So yellow iron, if there's a bulldozer on it, they're able to pick that up. They're able to look and see like all these different things that are associated with it, and it's just a pilot flying down. So the goal of the program would be is that you don't have to rely on that person to do that work, and then you don't have to rely on like a QA QC program from it, that the AI is able to read all those areas to go out and do it. And so we've been working with FlyScan for 2 years now. Some really great projects with them, and how we're using that and bringing it forward so that we can that we're on that AI edge.
Yeah.
And
So
that
just so I understand completely, the picture we saw that was in an aircraft, crewed aircraft,
yeah.
that is the equipment that you use with FlyScan, or is that equipment that the FlyScan system essentially replaces? I was unclear on that.
Oh, sorry. So that equipment that's the FlyScan. That's the computer that the FlyScan program watches off. So we have
Right.
a
So
pod
it's
that's
right now, is it limited, Craig, to like crewed aircraft because it's larger, or is there a way to leverage that with drones as well?
No, not yet. It's pretty big right now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit bulky and heavy. And they also need certain conditions for it. One of the
Yeah.
big problems with doing like the broad spectrum pipeline flying with this is, like with that 2 million miles a year,
Yeah.
the infrastructure just isn't there yet for us to be operating unmanned systems for the whole systems that we have, right?
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
just so
2
many
million miles.
challenges.
Yeah.
So the goal is to get it to that part where, like this would be flown autonomously, and we can like we can take those risks away. There's companies out there that are looking at how they can operate those.
Yeah.
We're just kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for those regulations and the ability for us to be able to actually do that.
Got it. Got it. All right. I want to skip over to boreal laser gas leak detection, or the GLD system. I know that's something else that you do and have an expertise in. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So the boreal laser system is a passive gas leak detection system. So what it is the way that the gas would come out of an actual pipeline itself, it comes up and it disperses. And so what the helicopter does when it has the boreal on it is it's essentially flying the pipeline, and it flies through the plume that's created by um, it flies through the plume that's created by the gas that's coming up. The boreal has it collects the gas through, and it's got a laser that shoots through the actual air that it picks up, and it's able to tell what the gas is. So as we're doing that, we're able to tell concentrations against background. So it's picking up gas as it goes up along. There's naturally occurring methane everywhere in our atmosphere, but
Yes,
it's
there
able to
is.
take it and look at it and say the background gas in this is 1.2 parts per million. But now we're seeing a spike of 3 parts per million. And then at that point, the helicopter would be able to um, do another pass at it, circle to see if they can isolate where that is actually coming from. But it is a passive system. So
Okay.
you have to have a plume to fly through. Now, where it gets interesting with that is the Falcon XL that we spoke about earlier. That is an active system. So it's pointed at the ground. It's looking for disturbances in the actual laser that is out in the real world. But the sensitivity for it isn't as high as the Boreal yet. They're still working on how they can refine that and find smaller leaks. So we have two systems that we're working with. One is a fixed wing based for the Falcon XL, and the other one is a rotary based with the Boreal, and then trying to find out the best mix for our customers so that they can get that accurate detection.
Okay, wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different sensors that you're working with, so many different aircraft and specific, let's just call them TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures that must be used depending on what we're trying to achieve here. So let's talk about LiDAR because this is something in the community, you go to all these shows, there's always these LiDAR companies there. In terms of pipeline integrity monitoring, what are the benefits of using LiDAR?
So this is the thing that like that we do. That is the thing that I'm kind of the most proud of. So as we start as a pipeline surveillance company, we fly a lot of miles and we look at all these things and we provide reports to our customers, and then their customers look at the reports and makes decisions based on them. When we really look at it though, from the entire scope of it, so that would be where we extend and where we stop. So kind of what's next, right? Like what else
Yeah.
can we do as an aviation company that is operating in these? So the next step to this would be to operate LiDAR programs for things like slope susceptibility, or monitoring geohazards that they have on the actual pipelines themselves. So we're able to go out and through, like periods of erosion, water crossings that, like are seen as risky, inputs from our actual clients of geohazards that they have known on their actual pipelines or assets themselves. So if we look at the slope susceptibility programs, we can go out and get a LiDAR image of a stretch of pipeline. And then we are able to take that LiDAR image and look at it and see, like put a bare ground picture of it, like remove all the vegetation and see what it looks like underneath, if there's any faults or any cracks. Then we're able to go back at, a period of time, whether it's 3, 6, 8 months, and then what we do at that point is we're able to look at it and say, here is the change that's happened. So we do change detection. We compare the rasters for the two different LiDAR images that we do and say, here's the change in the actual pipeline itself. And so as we get down to that road, we're able to go to our customers and say, there's erosion on this line. We've then operated LiDAR through the same area and said that, like there is movement in this. And so the next step is how that movement affects the physical pipe itself, right? If the soil's moving and the pipe is in the soil, then, common logic says that it's going to be putting some kind of pressure on the actual pipe. So
Yeah.
at that point where we get to, and this is going into the kind of the next stage of it, we partnered with a company called Skipper NDT 2 years ago. And like you said, NDT is non-destructive testing. Now
Yeah.
Skipper is purely non-destructive testing. So they don't physically touch the pipe at all. There's no ground disturbance. There's no anything. The Skipper program is a magnetronic survey. So it flies over the actual pipeline itself, the pipeline that's buried under the ground, if it's ferromagnetic, so if it's made of iron or anything that is magnetic, we fly over top of it with the drone that's shown here. It's got the Argos payload on the bottom. So the Argos payload is what's measuring the actual magnetic signatures coming from the Earth. The Earth has the magnetic fields. What they're doing is they're looking at the disruption of the magnetic fields caused by the actual pipeline itself. So we're able to get physical location, like XYZ location of that pipeline in space. So without actually digging, without doing anything else. So if we put this all together with that program, we're able to go and say, there's been movement on the actual line itself from a soil standpoint. Here's where your pipeline physically is. And then Skipper is able to do a bend strain analysis on the actual pipe itself to say, is there any strain on the pipe caused by the movement in the soil? And that is pure risk associated with, like, are we going to expect this to move more? Is this going to put enough pressure on the actual pipeline that we could have a potential release? How can we mitigate this before something happens? And so taking that step where we're measuring the like just flying the actual pipeline and seeing a period of erosion, to being able to provide our customers with our help from our partners at Skipper, that here's where we're getting to, is it's something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I learned a lot about magnetometers and geosciences in general, geoscience, UAS Geosciences is an organization. They put on a couple events. Ron Bell from Colorado here, they did it up in Fort Collins last fall. And it was before I launched Autonomy Global. I actually had a couple of articles based on that event and this kind of drone usage on the site when it launched on January 1st. So by the way, everybody, you can go back and look at those. There's universities doing tons of research here. This is a perfect also use in the mining industry. As you said, Craig, O&G, very big deal. Looking for wells, looking for pipes. These are all use cases for magnetometers and drones. And it's so awesome that you've partnered with Skipper NDT to not only use a drone to find these things and where there could be anomalies, but then to actually analyze those anomalies and be able to give the client that actionable intelligence. They can do something about it before, as you said, there's a rupture, something horrible that then they have to clean up. And that's never a place where you want to be. I believe we have another really cool video. We're getting short on time. So I want to roll that and you talk us through what we're seeing here, Craig.
Yeah, so this would be the actual visualization of the data that Skipper is able to provide. And
Wow.
the really interesting thing that comes out of this is, like that pipeline itself is under the ground. They can see it. Like they have some, like this is what's known as a digital twin. So they're able to show us where the actual pipeline is relative to the waterway and everything like that. So where this becomes really interesting is the physical Skipper tool goes from ground level to pipe. And so it doesn't determine what's in between it. It's only the ground level to the pipe level. So when we look at this problem that we have, now we need to find out the information about what's under the water. And that's where we kind of tie in that MEBS or MBES system, the multi-beam sensors. We're able to bring that in now and provide those two puzzle pieces together to go to our customers and say, here is what it actually physically looks like. You have the water level. Here's what is under the water, whether the pipe is exposed or not. But then here's the depth of cover you have from the bottom of that waterway to the physical pipe itself, so that you can then make decisions based on your risk tolerance in there. And so that imagery that was shown on there is something that we're able to provide oil and gas clients to say, like, here's the risks associated with what you're doing, in a place where, like, currently in a waterway, when they're looking for that bathymetric info, a lot of it's done with a diver, right? So taking that person out of the water provides such a huge safety increase right there as is, as flying.
And I imagine that's not cheap. I know there's not a ton of divers out there that do this kind of hyper specialized work.
Yeah.
I just saw a movie actually. It was like a deep sea thing and the guy got trapped. It was really good. But the point is there's like a handful of these guys in the world that like are trained to be able to do this kind of thing for oil and gas and energy companies. Super dangerous. So really, really cool.
And the other thing with that is when they're physically down, they're looking for depth of cover. A lot of the times, all that they're doing in order to find the actual pipeline itself is they're trying to stick a pipe and hit it and find something. Like there's no way to visualize it.
What could possibly go wrong jamming something in the ground looking for a pipe that could already be damaged?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious.
It's crazy the way that, and that's standard practice right now to try to find that stuff, right?
Well, you guys have changed the game. I love how you're stitching all this data together using multiple different systems and sensors and working with multiple partners. It's like amazing. I wanted to do the real quick rundown as we get here closer to close about the specialized geomatic services. So we talked about LiDAR, we talked about 3D modeling, obviously ortho mosaic mapping, because we just saw a video of that. We mentioned fugitive gas surveys, emissions mapping, slope analysis, terrain and volumes. I mean, UAV remote sensing. You're doing it all. It's like incredible what you guys are doing. But I want to talk about what's next. So you've got these amazing partnerships. You're working on improved technology, because the bottom line is technology keeps changing for the better. And what do you see kind of going forward?
Yeah, I think that the next steps to our industry is, well, one of them is like using those drones to incorporate them more in it. I mean, like there is a safety aspect just from not having a physical person operating those aircraft. I mean, realistically, especially these smaller aircraft that we have, there is risk associated with that. And so being able to move forward with a lot more unmanned services, it makes a lot of sense to us and our clients. I know if you look at CEOs in oil and gas industries, that's something that's on their radar, is they want us to use more unmanned services to reduce that safety component of it. So that's the really big thing. And then the next thing is being able to like with our partners at Skipper with the multi-beam echo sounder, being able to visualize these pipelines that are like seeing the unseen, right? It's buried. How do we find it? Like right now, the industry, when they're looking for a buried line, and get the actual locations, a lot of times they'll do what's called pigging. And so pigging is they should have a tool that goes down the actual pipeline itself. So they have to shut in the pipeline. They have to have a place to launch and pick up from. And then they go and they find it and they get a lot of information from it. Being able to do a lot of that work from the air without stopping production, without slowing down anything, and a lot safer is, like that's the keys that we're trying to offer. We're trying to reduce risk in this world, and that's one of the ways that we can do that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just spitballing here. It sounds like from everything you've just talked about, Craig, in a perfect world, to do like 2 million miles of pipeline inspections the way that they need to be done, you kind of need larger drones, because you talked about the Dragonfly XL. That's a bigger drone, but maybe even larger than that to do the coverage that you need. You need maybe smaller size, weight, and power swap sensors for some of these things, and obviously the regulatory approvals or leeway to be able to actually then execute. Did I miss anything? Like in a perfect world, as you look down the road, what else for anybody listening out there that's an industry, whether they're a maker or a doer, what would you say is really needed to take this whole, energy ops to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the big things that we do is just advocating for, like people who do this and do it well, right? From a regulatory standpoint, to look at it and say, and this is something that Volatus brings to the table on the Volatus Aerospace side, is working with Transport Canada and the FAA to progress some of these things forward, like get that view of what a safe operation is and where the risks associated with what we're doing are.
Yeah.
If we can operate, like a bigger drone that has the payload to take some of these sensors that we have on them in order to
Yep.
do it over long periods, in controlled environments and controlled situations, then yeah, let's do that. Let's give these things a try to get these use cases for it. But until we kind of get past that hurdle and try to move past a lot of these misconceptions and like not really accurate views of what the drone industry does, that's the part where I see the biggest hurdle over the next 2 years is just getting them a little bit more adopted, a little bit less scary in that way.
Yeah, well, that's what we're all working to do together, right, Craig? So thank you so much. I think stories like yours and the return on investment and the safety cases that you're building every single day in your company are the stories that the regulators and frankly the general public need to hear when it comes to drones and what they can bring to the table. So thank you for what you're doing, and once again, great to talk to you. We have about actually probably 2 seconds left. So in those couple of seconds, please let everybody know how they can learn more about Synergy Aviation, how they can reach you, and other than finding you in person at Energy Drone, which you'll be on that floor.
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Craig Husselby. synergyaviation.ca is our website, and volatusaerospace.com. And it has all the information that you'd have. And I look forward to seeing you in energy drones and robotics.
Woohoo. All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, before Energy Drone, Volatus will also be out in force in general, though Craig won't be joining them for that one in Houston next week. Join us at Law Tech Connect, big energy panel, but also so many other panels, including about Beyond Visual on Site and U.S. traffic management, which is all the regulations that's going to make this stuff happen that we just talked about. So, Craig, thank you again. Thank you, everybody out there. Thank you, Chris Geneseth, for your many questions. Look forward to see you in Houston and beyond. Everybody, we are out here.